Greetings, colleagues. Day 152 of Ukraine's heroic resistance. My name is Natalia Staropravo, and we are ready to start our press briefings within Media Center Ukraine. We have Mr. Roman Slaston here with us, Director General of the Association Ukrainian Agrarian Business Club. Roman, Russia is attacking Ukrainian seaports despite the agreement. So, what is the current situation with grain exports? Greetings. You are right. We had and we still have high hopes for agreements involving Turkey and UN because that will definitely create some grain exports possibilities from our seaports. And our seaports accounted for about 98% of grain exports. During wartime, we have been able to reformat our exports a little bit, and we have been able to export grain and other crops by other avenues, the Danube River in particular. But we have already reached the threshold to 2.5 million tons a month. This is not sufficient to export the enormous remaining storm that we have. We have millions of tons from last year, and the current harvesting season is already in the works. We expect millions of tons of grain, sunflower, and some other crops. For domestic consumption, we need only about 20 million. To export the remaining stock during the next year, during the next 12 months, we need to export about 6 million tons per month. Without seaports, it's a formidable task, or basically this is mission impossible. We can also focus on harvesting the crops and preserving them, but without seaports, we will have to export this stock for subsequent 3 years. That will be a huge challenge for agribusiness. We will also have some challenges with the seeding campaign next year, so we're still cherishing hopes for the possibility of grain exports with the use of our seaports. How is grain being stored right now? I'm talking about those agribusinesses that have not been able to export their products. We still have sufficient storage facilities, but we expect that in October we will run out of storage space. Roman, we cannot hear you. Are you with us? We are still waiting. Apparently, we're having some technical issues. I would like to remind you that we are going to have our next press briefing at 11:30. Our guest will be Mr. Serhiy Brachuk, spokesperson for the Odessa Oblast Military Administration. We can see that the enemy continues pounding the city of Odessa. We're still waiting for the contact with Mr. Slaston to resume. Roman, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. You can continue. Let me remind you my question. How is grain being stored right now, as well as other products? We still have sufficient storage facilities, at least for early crops, but we expect that in the fall, around October, we will have a peak season for harvesting late crops, corn, sunflower, soy, and we will have a deficit of about 10 to 15 million tons in storage capacities. To attend to this matter, we can utilize the technology of temporary storage. This is a storage in polymer containers that can be set up directly in the fields with a solid surface. And we can also construct modular structures for grain storage. And grain can be stored there throughout the year, even up to 1.5 years. Temporary storage facilities can be a great solution for agribusinesses under the conditions when we cannot export sufficient grain crops. And this way we will be able to empty storage facilities from the last year. How much grain can be exported now and where? Now we are exporting about 2.5 million tons. This is the indicator that we expect as of the end of July, based on the current pace of export. Out of 2.5 tons, we have grain, about 1.5 tons, also sunflower and processing products like sunflower oil and some other oil processing products. Most of the products are exported via EU member states, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary. These countries have been most assistant in helping us export our products by transit via their countries. And some of the products are delivered to their ports, the ports of the Black Sea, the ports of the Baltic Sea, and from there, they are exported to other markets, African countries, Asian countries, where there is a need for Ukrainian grain. Can you tell us more about damage to the agrarian market considering the blockade of the seaports? The blockade of the seaports is indeed a great challenge to our agribusinesses. We need to understand that even the 2.5 million tons that we are exporting right now imply enormous costs and efforts for agribusinesses and other market actors. The problem is that delivery costs have increased multifold. Before the full-scale invasion, we were able to utilize the seaports, and we had to invest about 25 to 30 USD per ton in logistics. Right now, the cost of delivery to European seaports is about 200 USD per ton. So basically, from 300 USD per ton of barley, grain, or sunflower, agribusinesses receive only 100 USD, sometimes even less. And this is not sufficient to cover the cost of production because the prime cost of production has skyrocketed as well. There's a question from the audience, please. Andriy Shevchenko, Media Center, Ukraine. Right after the Istanbul initiative was signed, the Russians struck the Odessa port, and one of the targets could include terminals or grain-related infrastructure. So basically, it's a sign that Russia will continue the food blackmail of Ukraine and the world. I have two questions in this regard. Do you feel that under such conditions, there will be insurance companies that will insure sea transportation from Ukrainian seaports? And my second question, what do you hear from your partners from abroad? Do they understand that Russia is the main person responsible? This attack on the next day after the Istanbul initiative was signed is pure hypocrisy on the part of Russia. So Russia has demonstrated its true colors once again, and they cannot really pass the buck to Ukraine, even though this is something that they attempted to do in the media space. So they blamed Ukraine for Africa and Asia not receiving grain. With regard to insurance, it will be a challenging issue for most private companies unless relevant guarantees are provided, because we can see that even guarantees from Turkey and the UN are not sufficient. But we really hope that there will be vessel owners that will be ready to export. This is something that we see in the Danube River. A lot of vessels come without insurance coverage, but then such freight is more expensive. We do not expect the cost of delivery from seaports to other destinations to be cheaper than before the war, but it will be much cheaper than other logistics routes. And this will also help us balance the domestic market because we don't really want our agribusinesses to receive 1,500 hryvnias per ton of barley or grain. This is the price offered by some fraudsters. Roman, what will the consequences for the world be, the consequences of this food price crisis, and will unblocking the seaports resolve this crisis? This will definitely facilitate because we have immense grain stock that cannot make it to the world market. But on the flip side of things, it will also be a great achievement or upside for our agrarian market. Without exports, agricultural producers will not be able to generate the revenues that they need to continue their production. In the fall, we might have a 30% deficit in seeding because agricultural producers are short of money to purchase seeds, fertilizers, equipment, fuel. They cannot really afford to pay salaries and rent to landowners. So basically, without proceeds, agribusinesses stand a big chance of running into enormous challenges. And this will have a spillover effect next year. Right now, we still have some harvest and we cannot export it in the volumes necessary. It's all about logistics, but next year there's a big risk of us not even having half the harvest because we will not be able to seed our fields. Thank you. We had Roman Slaston with us, Director General of the Association Ukrainian Agrarian Business Club. We will see you at 11:30 with Serhiy Brachuk. Stay with us.